Welcome back, everyone. Thank you for your patience if you're online. Hopefully, you took a break, you got some food, you got some nourishment. Let's start. This panel is exploring activism and advocacy. Why is it important to arts? And so we're looking at in what ways do the arts require more progressive ways of practice, creation, and presentation that supports the importance of activism. How can we begin to align the arts with activism in a world grappling with social issues that impact the arts and society itself? I'm really excited to moderate with two amazing persons. One will be here in a moment, but we're going to get started, and I'll just tell you as I introduce the first sort of speaker on the topic. It's Ariel. Ariel, as a fellow for anyone who says that human rights and global justice, Ariel works with artists around the world to better engage audiences with efforts related to the environment and human rights, particularly the More Than Human Rights Month program and the Future of Rights and Governance program, FORGE. In Toronto, Ariel contributes to monumental projects in support of community-based cluster research, and that informs emerging policies, upcoming urban developments, and the arts sector. Ariel, welcome. I cannot. It's gonna be that type of kind of a conversation. Is there anything else we should be doing? Oh, good. Thank you. And wiggling his way in, with such fervor is a dear colleague and friend, Rodney Diverlus, who pronounced the endemic. Is Asian community artist and stuff there to say in the space where you see primarily Jamaican or Trinidadian-based artists. It's a pleasure to highlight certain artists with Black from the Caribbean particular space. And Rodney is both an activist and artivist, producer, and organizational change professional. Rodney is co-founder and director of the Wild Seed Center for Arts and Activism, and our artists run multidisciplinary center for social and community change. Rodney does, and I'm doing this like myself, with the spirit. He's also co-owner and producer with Above the Palace, a media production company that works in film, TV, and multidisciplinary live performance. And this bio is getting dropped in the chat. Amongst many other things, Rodney is a past facing on the tour, but is also co-founder of Black Lives Matter Toronto. And to connect things, I first moved Rodney when Rodney did a beautiful piece on homosexuality in the arts and queerness in the arts, where he was in the university. And we've been on this journey ever since years. And Ariel actually, I had to be performing at Forge in New York with a colleague of mine. At Forge, and it was again around environmental and organized grievance issues at NYU. So welcome. I want to start by maybe Ariel sharing thoughts on the themes of the conversation and where you set me as a person, as an artist. And sorry, I just wanted to not be there. So yeah.
If you put it close to you.
It's a huge topic. I don't know where to start. So bear with me while I try. One of the things that I found out is, you sent me the questions on art and activism and advocacy, is I feel there's this really interesting sense of the personal versus the collective in this work. I think you may relate to this, and Kevin, you may relate to this, where I think people call to this space. There's a very small community that we build off the backs of who have done work like this for years. You know, like us to wow, and like the sort of fever and the press. There's such a long lineage and history and record of people using the arts to speak in space, to speak in policy, to speak in change, to elevate and uplift community, and in process also elevate and uplift self, right? And I feel like it lives in this like dual sphere, which is that we, based on our individual experiences, I'm living in Canada, part of the settler community here, and the space of art and activism is helping me accept that, understand that, and feel powerful as an ally. And also because I'm living in a huge way, and always is, you know. And it holds my heart. It helps me to leave the things that bring pain to me, the things that bring joy to me. And in my most selfish moments, I feel like the space of art and activism is a very self-serving, can be a very self-serving endeavor. Because it becomes a space where those things you can't talk about with your friends, or those things you struggle to bring into your family conversations, or that you have to code switch when you're at your desk when you're a human rights practitioner. You have to use a certain language so that there's no space to talk about this like really deep heart-centered work that is like a foundation of social change. And it starts with us. Like I feel very strong that this work starts with us. And if you haven't done the work for yourself, it's really hard to do it well with and for the community, but that's a forever experience. You know, like as soon as I think I've done the work, I'm like, oh, I'm back at the beginning. Mm-hmm. When we get to community, I look at the New York University's and human rights and justice, and a lot of my work is more curatorial. I'm a host and facilitator, not necessarily me presenting, not necessarily me performing, because I'm not the host either. Always, oftentimes, in space. And I get to learn so much by bringing in and learning with and through other people's art. They're speaking on issues of human rights and justice, specifically in the environment. And artists have a way of reaching people's heart where like the language and law, human rights and social change is typically a very law-centered endeavor, right? Like, human rights is based on legal codes, it's based on human rights in itself is a legal field, as is policy. And so it appeals to this like very specific training, this very specific language, this very specific way of being. And a lot of people don't connect with it. And I think that, you know, there's a reason that civic engagement is at its all-time low. People aren't voting, people aren't writing to their representatives, which is how democracy works. The way that our democracies were designed is that people have to be with their community, talk about issues, vote, write letters to your representative. That's the only way you can lead on the legal landscape, on the possibilities for us. But people feel so disenfranchised by the law. You know, people feel so powerless, so frustrated with government, that people don't want to engage in. And I think the arts is this critical bridge for people to come back. But what I worry is that the arts right now is mostly living in the world of social media. And social media doesn't impact the law. Social media doesn't impact governments. You could maybe like push back on me and say, no, it does. You know, there is a public opinion that is important to politicians that exist in social media. But all the time that people spend in artivism right now is important, but I don't think it's translating to law. I don't think it's translating to policy. And I think that's actually just making people more frustrated. Because we're doing all this great work, and we're still not seeing change. And so we're just getting more frustrated, and more disenfranchised. So that's something I'm really interested also to hear from you guys have ideas about. It's something I think about a lot. which is how do we enliven in the space of social change? How do we benefit from these deep gifts that artists and hence communities have to heal ourselves and put together? And how do we actually frame it in a way that people are extending their connections beyond the itself?
Wow, thank you for that. And there's something beautiful about how the arts and activism is emerging now in a continuous society rather than society. We focus a lot on the context of the thing, that not so much about the person or the color. The blackness there is to peace in those things. So it's like when you see that, think about the word we just talking about, small of this, right, which is specific to big artists. And how important it is right now in space and violence within a context of this disillusionment. And so I'm going to come back to the social media thing because I think there's something beautiful there that could connect to what we spoke about today, like arts and AI and creation. And I think it could both be a service and a service. I'm curious to hear your thoughts on what socially it can be for artists and advocacy. Rodney, you want to share some thoughts on this topic because I know.
I had an answer for you. You spoke. I'm going on that. And also, if my memory serves me, hopefully I'll remember it and I'll try to go. I was thinking about actually in the Uber here. The Uber driver. Love this. Essentially, when I invite you. I was really thinking about this. I assumed you would ask a broad question to start off with activism. And I have this theory that most artists, and artist is such a broad, what is an artist? In society, we consider an artist if there's an exchange of capital, but I'm extending it much broader. Art makers, art creators. And this could be quite productive, and I'm owning that. I feel like everybody knows there's either two motivations. Sometimes the motivations are the same, but often they're quite distinct for why you get into your art practice. For some people, it's to make money. Mm-hmm. That's it. It's like an exchange of capital. It is to be famous, to make money, to get out there, and to have the widest audience as possible, to be Beyonce, for example. She's been really clear that's going to go. And then there are folks who most everybody else create art because they find there was a need, something missing that has to be contributed to. Mm-hmm. There is something missing in the technique, there's something missing in the conversation, there's something missing within themselves, there's something missing within their community. And for me, not to be reductive, but to be reductive, everything else in the latter category to me is artivism. And that one does not have to engage formally in activist practices to be engaged in artivism, because the act of birthing something in the absence of nothing is already change making. And it's I think sometimes people are well, how do you become, I think the word activist can be, I'm at the point where I'm friends when I hear, because there's a word capital A, activism as activism, trademark, it's activism Inc. has become sort of the de facto way of change making, but creating a work that's somatic, that is answering the question of grief, using your experience with grief as a way to connect with the public audience's experience with grief is activism in that, because there's not enough mental health support out there, there's not enough conversations on grief. No matter what it is you're exploring, I think about Echo, a visual artist who uses Legos to build large-scale imaginary worlds, and that is activism. It's reimagining with your childhood self, playing with something that you probably were told you couldn't do it to reimagine Black existence. It's that for me, it's the connection is always so much more. It's much more pervasive. I think most of us actually are engaging in art and activism. Most of us are engaging in change making. I like to think more of it as change making if you're talking more formal, and you just have to jump on the door because I'm like, it was with you. I was really on this. I actually think that there's like a tale of two worlds happening. With the digital realm, I mean, we're about like 15 years into cell phones. Like we're about to enter the 2-decade realm. It's still so new in terms of technology. But I reckon about 20 years in the future, we're going to really realize that there are a tale of two worlds that are happening parallel to each other that actually are speaking less and less to each other than we think. Team IRL are here to talk about the structure and systems that we already are in, right? We need funding for buildings like these. We need legislation to change. We need policymakers to respond to us. We need sound and just policy. We need laws that reflect the societies that we are in. We are working in this. And then there are team digital. And I'm going to be reductive because I know it's much more nuanced than that. But I just think that there actually are growing numbers of people who actually are so disillusioned, like you said, or have actually, it's not even given up, have pivoted away from the need to engage IRL. Because the law is IRL, the law feels so present, and so there's an active growing group of people that are trying to understand more and more, because it's not small, it's millions of us, it's actually growing more of us, particularly for millennials, particularly for Gen Zers, especially for Generation Alphas, who realize that they have power within themselves, and who need to force themselves out of these structures to build power within themselves because of not seeing themselves in these structures. They're not seeing that the structures support them. So, perfect example I can think about is that the most, I would say, most controversial, divisive, present issue of the moment. We know that they change moment by moment, but of this moment, it's Israel-Palestine. It is occupying a lot of space. It is something that's galvanizing people on, no matter where you're at. It's very rare to find people in the middle on this issue now. And there's a growing number of people online. And I remember when I first did media training, when I was 18, someone was explaining to us, like, there's like, when you're speaking on media, there's either like us on them on us, them on them. Us on us is when you're like answering a question to a reporter. You don't even talk about, but they're like, tell us about this controversy of Kevin wearing these orange, these orange laces. And I'd be like, actually, I love orange laces, and orange laces are blah, blah, blah. I just don't even answer. Us on us is like not even talking about you, it's just answering for me. And I feel like for the first time in my life, I'm seeing politically, the folks who are talking about the needs for Palestinian sovereignty, and those folks that are talking about the other side, are speaking to themselves, actually, are us and us. There's like actively, we know we are speaking to like-minded folk. And that doesn't necessarily jive well in the world that requires nuance and debate and compromise. And, you know, like you might have a bill that comes in and nobody gets their way, but everybody gets their way. It doesn't necessarily jive with the world like that. And so the part of me can kind of imagine 20 years down the line, you know, we're getting in this election cycle, both in the US and Canada, is quite telling. And not just who we assume is going to get elected, but like demographics of who actually even bothers coming out anymore. And so I actually think that's the biggest concern, I guess it's the thing, but it's more like observation actually, that people have divorced themselves out of the need to build power and or to be seen and or to be validated by the IRL system that we put in place, because the digital sphere has allowed these folks to create parallel and similar systems. And I will discount them in their capacity for power. I think that there's a moment that might even trump voting power. That the amount of people that go out and vote will be significantly less than the people who are radicalizing other people digitally. That so many of us will go to a place not because it's been told to us either, but because we see it online. And many of us are finding our politics, our way of life, our community. Some people's entire communities. I have a dear friend of mine who moved in the US, and They were so isolated during the pandemic. They moved during the pandemic. It was like an accident thing. Moving January 2020, you know, like maybe not the best time, you know what I mean? End of January, and they are on Clubhouse. So Clubhouse is this app that is like really people just go and chat. Like really the best way to describe it is if you're on Twitter now and they do spaces, that's pretty much like a group that you're in the Clubhouse. It's just like people go and they just chat. And you know, I'm like, no, like, and this is what I mean. Like, I'm running to the gig, like, running to the chat. I don't know how to book, like, and I discounted it for so long, but 4 years, his friends, his community, there's already board, you know, there's already like, it's like, he genuinely has built his entire community digitally from scratch in the beginning. That is where his politics are coming in. That's where they're sharing notes. That's where they're talking. There is the like job stuff. Like he was trying to happen to tech, and then he's able to go to a tech space, and we talked about it, and we found somebody that connected to the computer, and then he has a job that's now also virtual, and he's never met his people, and he's fully working and living in a society virtually. They just had their first meetup in DC in 4 years. Over a year, these friends have been. So I just feel like, for me as somebody who's radically IRL, who's radically embedded in like how do we make these systems and these policies better, the part of it that's fascinating to me because I do think we're gonna end. What's interesting is it's happening on both sides of the aisle, for lack of better words, like the far right to extreme right actually already so disillusioned by these systems. They're like, I mean, they tried to YouTube, they tried to create a new in the United States. Like there is a lack of faith in anything. And then that's also happening on the far left, and then slowly it's emerging in the middle. So I'm just curious what's gonna happen because I think we're gonna reach a moment in which those of us are like, we do need sound better policy. Come out on the streets to do these, and then there's a bunch of people who are like, in this round, we have our own policies actually. The thing is, this round has not connected yet to the material conditions of the IRL world. The fact that we need wages to survive, the fact that we need sound policy to survive, the fact that we need everything from domestic to foreign policy. And there's a disconnect because our world is so created from IRL. And so I just fear the worst is going to happen where there is going to become an inevitable clash. And I don't know who will happen.
There's an interesting point there, because we are for so long has been an IRL museum in person. How then do we survive as our arts organizations survive, or dare I say spaces like this survive that I as pastor work so hard to build as a ground thing for people that came to do. Right, so that's also my concern. Is like if the URL digital space takes sues the IRL space, what then happens to us within that reality? Is it that we're totally shifting to that space? What's the combination? Because I think there's also that of how do we begin to say that arts or simple in space is equally as important as digital space. You know, that's one of my concerns and one of my interests is with a panelist starting the idea of AI and, you know, what is the do? And if we could market, we could talk about this. Then day generative arts, the way we look at global rights and human rights requires the IRL space, the diverse space, because no decision, no bill, no advocacy is time. It's like those things are not signed and decided. Right? And then also, my other concern, and I'll go back to you guys, is that if I'm existing on a digital space, still really in this space, I'm supposed to eat. Yeah. I have to read, I have to share the space with you. And so, but I also think it's an interesting space to put in outside. And that for me is also advocacy. It's also what do you win? Either this or that. Can be part of the critical in those.
I want to touch on what you said about activism, and then I want to talk about the I really love that you called out activism, and I got uncomfortable. I get uncomfortable when I do activism. I get uncomfortable being labeled an activist, largely because activism is also the vilified around the world, right? Like activists in different spaces, in different governments, in different countries, in different contexts, because of the message that they are bringing, and oftentimes because of the way they give the message, is this very vilified character by power. And so I think it polarizes us in a way that I don't want to participate in that. Like, I want to be able to say my dream is in conflict resolution and the cultural pluralism. That's what I want to participate in. I want to participate in community, in conversation, and us arriving at the table together. I don't want to be against you. I don't really want to participate in art or create art that is creating that feeling of us and them. I want to create spaces and be in spaces and be with people that want to have really difficult conversations. And as you said, we may not agree, but we can really understand each other better. And in a lot of ways, I think that's that advocacy and activism that's misneeded, because we're speaking so long, necessarily in some places, necessarily about certain time. But I wonder if that's the construct that's the word that's in called us. That's what we're going to go. If we need to find a different way to talk about what we're doing that invites everyone. On the IRL versus digital, like, we are all cyborgs. We are like fully in a cyborg world. A cyborg is something that has like an extended element from the body that like consists of performance. We all have that person. So I think that it's kind of a false binary to say digital versus IRL. We live in the digital world. We are in real life right now, and there's a camera there, and there's a microphone, and there's a phone for the notes. And if I wanted to, I could go, check Google or go on social media right now, and people could be in conversation with us. And I think that's the path, is that understanding the reality and blended environment. We're going to blend with reality, where we live in the world, and we live in the space. And then you would take kind of like a balance thought process of how do you beautifully balance reality? Is there a way? I'm a bit biased because I think digitalism, as important and amazing as it is the key source of a lot of our environmental crises, right? Like the way in which we develop technologies, the minerals that we rely on for technologies, the massive internet powers that are required in order to power our digital world are extracted to the max. And this is just my personal politics. I do very strongly believe in to come back to a regenerative world, or what we say we take back. And the world is right now, I would say, I think there's a different visual world, but this visual world of 2024 doesn't live in that world. And at the same time, as amazing as digital community is, maybe not a digital community in Clubhouse, there were poetry slams on Clubhouse, if I talk about activism in digital space, we go. But it also, people need to touch them. People need to learn in the same way that we're learning to be in conversation with each other. We need to learn how to be in conversation with plants and animals and trees. And we need to reclaim that because we've lost it. Like most people are not in active conversation without knowing being known. There's I'm not the right person to talk about this, so I'll mention it for folks that people go read about it or ask people about it. But there's a really important piece of information out there that's called the 8-hour prophecy. And it comes from the 7 hours knowledge and the information that they people. And they suggest in this 8-hour prophecy, right now in YouTube, that there's going to be 2 pathways. One is down the digital and technological road, and the other is back into relation in a general and co-creative relationships with the natural beyond human. And then indigenous peoples, having the keepers of this language, so long as it's not for the question of revolution and the digital revolution, are the natural leaders of this movement. And I think it's a beautiful process of this movement. And I want people to think about that as well. And I think that people who are really well versed in that role of indigenous prophecy would have a lot to contribute to this conversation as well, in terms of how
Thank you. I have a question. The question I have is, in what ways do you or have you experienced the arts? In what ways do you experience the arts, or have you experienced the arts? I want to say the arts, I'm talking about, a piece you saw, this is I felt. My person is like, I lived it before, I was angry, I was challenged to make change in that. Yeah, digital. I went online and commented on Instagram. I thought this story. Now it moved in these, or I saw that this art, this thing created experience was really collective, that Jew and raw. I think I was in another conversation with Toronto Arts Council and Newcomb. And I was mentioning that social reality and the political reality. So I think these are the ways we're inspired to. What was that piece that you saw? It was all we didn't talk about. That's what it was about. I thought about how the arts were different.
That's a very good question. I'm going to do the first part of that. Start broad and we're very specific about it, and we're really today. We'll show us how that is. I mean, the broad, the easy answer that I can give, or easy, that's not the right word.
It's really difficult.
The answer, the feel good answer that I can do is art is subjective. From anybody's perspective, what you might see as very okay, whatever art for somebody might be challenging and changing. So it's anything for somebody is going to feel like it's pushing against their beliefs or ideas of where they see the world. But I'm going to come down first to reality and recognize that I struggle actually in this country, in this land that we call the Canada. Because I feel like sometimes I surround juries, I have a conversation, I'm out of our community, and we love the word risk taking. We're here, artists taking risks, and we're trying new things, and when it's practice, we actually reward sameness a lot. We actually reward safety, reward comfort. And I can give a very tangible example. Part of my practice in the last couple of years has been to expand into the reported media lab. And so that to me is what people would say television, except for linear television instead. It's movie series and or filmmaking. And we were with our public broadcaster, watching a show, and the show was this political spin, like this Mercer report, modern day Mercer report, comedy political spin from Gen Z and the so BIPOC Gen Z and that is digesting those complex issues online to essentially what memes are, which are like taking a very big issue and making it into 6 slides. That was what the show was doing. And they looked at us and they listened and they were like, you presentation. They said, we're taking this classic, so, there's so much time right now. Do you think like, this was a factual interview, where they do like unscripted, where like, feel more like a great Canadian they come. I mean, love the show, fun show, great show. As a leader of the city, people got guns. But like, this is the thing though, how many times are we also on the jury and you're like, wow, like, this work is like getting us pushing it, it's like making people uncomfortable, let's fund it. And it's like, no, we're gonna fund the like work of the night and exploration of the night. I do think that there is, in theory, yes, they all, the art and all artists have a space to be push making, and I've seen so many examples. But the longer I live and work in this jurisdiction, the more I realize that there is, I don't want to be conspiratorial as an agenda, but that there is a generalistic to declass as artists. If you want to keep getting funded, do things that will appeal to our version of what we imagine Canadians are. It's like, we believe Canadians only want to watch big Canadian big past. We believe that this work. And it's not everywhere. I think it's a very Anglo thing. Montreal, they're on another tip. They're exploring the whole other thing. But it tends to be an Anglo, middle of Canada, all the way to the West Coast kind of approach. And I worry that if we're not constantly resisting that, constantly being like, no, but I want to explore this. I want to explore that. I don't want to make a work that is perfectly capturable in 500 words for a subject class of grants. I realize that more and more I'm making my work for the grant. Like I'm like imagining a work, thinking about what is fundable, rather than like what is it that I want to do. So I'm like naturally drawing myself more and more. And so I feel like to your question, I think yes, absolutely. I've seen a lot of work that have pushed me, that have challenged me. But to be real honest with you, more and more they're from places outside of here. They're from people from outside of here. I'm getting to see them here. But I'm like, what is it? Like, what is the sauce that we're missing? And I think it is this aspect of risk taking. It's literally a part of all the grant applications. But we actually really want to be, as collectively, we like safety in an aspect of non-creativity. I think audiences, modern contemporary audiences in this jurisdiction, Anglo Canada, really want to be reinforced. Really want to be felt. Maybe it's want to be seen through their work, but a work that is completely reimagined who you are as a human being. I think it's just, for some reason, for a lot of audiences, that everybody too much. It's just too much. The last work that really pushed me, I would say, I saw it on Monday. It's called Weathering. It's by an artist named Driscoll from New York, I believe. It kind of looked like a Gap commercial. And that, that any Gap commercials that were like perfectly massive, and they were like, I really want. Yeah, but it's like, the category, I think, more like, let's think of the US and let's think of like, how do we be the most diverse. They were like, we want pictures and pages. And, at first surface level, I was like, okay, this is like, who perfectly has it? And it's a crayon box of multiple crayons. But the work itself was really simple. It was on massive canvas, and the simplicity of it, an hour and a half of watching just one profession. The way that it felt like I was watching, I had to just think of all my neighbors in the history of my life, to get them together on stage and ask them to show me their life story. That's what it was like. What I appreciated about it and what pushed me is that it was definitely an invitation rather than like we didn't need to be there as an audience member. which is really interesting. I find in art sometimes where it's like, they're not making it for us. If you happen to be sitting and catch it, or not, it felt like they just do this all the time. It was gonna happen. It was gonna happen anyways. There was like a happenstance about it, and they weren't. And the effort was like, this is what it is. It's just like, this happened. It's just like at some point, it's just they're moving and not just as moving, and you saw two people like feel evidence. And somebody was like, grab this thing's big idol. You grab this thing's big idol. And it was in his mouth. And I was like, this is it. Oh my gosh. I was like, oh God, the world was so visceral, it's so raw, it's so messy. But again, toward you. The last play that I saw that really challenged me was The Inheritance. Also, so it's not to say anything about us, but I think we are actually some of the most talented people on earth. So there's like a disconnect, I think, between perhaps the talent level and the interest. I also know all my artist friends have a whole list of notebooks of things they really want to start. But again, it's like, what venues? Can you afford the venue? What's the funding? The funding goes down to that. But I think there's a way that our system has created us to be trapped in the wheel. And I wonder if many of us have much more to say than what could be fundable. I was just laughing at Sam to hear about state. It's like, I know why I enjoy particularly like on the ground organizing and really thinking that my on the ground organization is part of the practice. That I can work with artists to imagine artistic activations that are unfundable, that are just like volunteer like driven, that are can we fundraise X amount of dollars and people just keep trying for us and we'll buy the page and we'll go on the street and we'll do the thing. It's also in the past number of years that art making has made me feel really alive and made me feel like, oh, I'm not editing this for not for a presenter, not for a funder, not for an audience even. We want to say this, we're going to say it. But all of those have always been external to the primary art making apparatus that we're all living in. So I just think it's that, especially post 2020, we not all have many more opportunities in more spaces, but we know that that's the sauce we bring often is like pushing beyond what is seen. And I just encourage all of us of our generation and beyond to like do not want to live a life of completely blind myself. And being like, oh, I actually meant to say this, but I couldn't because I had to give it my chance. Yeah. And I spoke to Ariel in a minute, but what's really beautiful about it is even in these conversations that is so though we physical movers or creators or whatever, that this is also part of the work that is needed because we give a really good advice about not thinking about the brands to make the work, but what it suffers. What is the sauce? What is in the work? Rather than going on the brand to do. And I want anybody saying, in most cases, the people I speak, I'm like, oh, how this thing. Because if Catcher Dance or CPAMO get funding, and a black artist, a person of artist is not supported. So there's a responsibility. Right? So then how do we actually understand also, as far as what we have small activists, how do we inclusive of practices that supports us to really work? So that's a really, really beautiful advice that I'm just getting about thinking about what rather than which we'll have legs and we'll have currency, social currency to someone. Because I think that whatever work that's created is not socially responsive to the moment because it takes too much to do. Or so what I did that was, the resilience of like finding the moments, finding money, people that those are on the ground philosophy that make you feel where space. And what space you think is also connected. And I think what you talk about here. We must see how so many problems you share.
I really love what you said about art outside the art apparatus. I think that's something that we could all like investigate as a community. when I was in university, I was studying how to support community-based artisans. I was like trying to unpack this and how do we make the arts world financially sustainable, especially if you're a community-based traditional artist that have there are certain art forms that have not evolved into the commercial apparatus, right? Certain art forms have evolved into the commercial apparatus and have revenue model, but they're sticking. There's other art forms, particularly traditional community-based art forms, that never evolved that way, right? That stayed in the community, that stayed in circle, and never built a revenue apparatus around it. And it's so beautiful and so needed for that reason. And I couldn't find the answer. The university basically had like a null thesis, but I never know. And it's one of the things that pushed my career outside of the arts. Because I was like, oh, if the arts are this very specific thing, that doesn't truly hold space for the unrevenue outside of granting, obviously, but like beyond grants. Art as it was originally imagined, and I could be totally wrong here, but my experience of art, ancient art, is that it is life, right? Art is healing, art is artisans are living in and with community as a service, as a core model, not just an infrastructure of community, but as the economy. But our modern economy never evolved to absorb that, right? That model got lost, and so now the arts have been reshaped into this apparatus. I love that word. I never use that word, but I would instantly thank you. And so, how do we take art everywhere? In a form of our own advocacy or activism, investigating our apparatus and breaking this apparatus, and break the apparatus of what we imagine art to be. Can we break ourselves out of this and be like, oh, this isn't it? Maybe people go and get trained in all sorts of different fields, and then we co-opt those fields as art spaces. You just do it, you know, as a way to expand who we are and what we're doing in all sorts of areas of society. And oftentimes that's the art, to answer your first question, that touches me the most, is an art experience we don't expect it to happen. Or just like a beautifully facilitated conversation that, for me, I experience it as a form of social art because they just brought together some performance of conversation. So, to answer your question more directly, I am working with a beautiful woman in the Media Challenge. She's running an experiment through the Future of Rights and Governance program. And a couple of weeks ago, she had her first pilot meeting of a new play that she's writing called Rodney. And I'm so excited for her to eventually bring this to stage. I'm so touched by it. I've been really down recently. I've been really sad recently. I've not been coping well with the kind of mass political situation in the world. I've really been and I still show up to my 40-hour-a-week job and try to do the thing, but like deep down, I'm really. And we got online for this virtual reading of the Walk of Play. And the Walk of Play is exploring environmental justice through the lens of African goddesses and deities. And through these two beautiful twins who are moving through space and time, learning about different forms of Wata and environmentalism and their own culture, through goddesses and deities, showing sexually, all this beautiful Egypt. And for this virtual reading, London cast people from all over the world and all ages. So the youngest person was probably 6, and the oldest person was probably in their 60s in the cast. And in rehearsals, you had Baltimore, UK, Kenya, all over the world, people kind of discovering this play together. And it felt so artistic, the process itself of these artists situating themselves inside the play. And having these kind of pluralistic, multicultural discoveries with each other. But then in the moment of watching it a couple of weeks ago, it was the first time I just felt so joyful. If that makes sense. I was, the characters were amazing, the twins were amazing, and I just felt so enlivened in a long time. And I just like, I looked back at the recordings and the sessions, talk about the, the gap between digital and IRL. And I'll say that like IRL, digital lets us do these things where like there's a cast from literally all over the world in the conversation with each other. I look back at the recording and just hear the whole time. And Catherine, I can't wait for that play to be awesome. It's around the book. So look up the language about the place called Washington W.H. She stays in
Thank you for sharing. What advice as artists, as creators, would you have for other artists, organizations, creators out there around finding voice? Only voices speaking time that those voices sometimes want to be quelled, or finding voice to stand up as a merchant and do like what advice can you both give around that thing as an artist, as organizations, and there's something different to the world where, as you mentioned, and I do agree. Because, Canada's a lot of the sameness because it makes me feel too necessary. Comfortable. We feel within right? But I think it's about how we use the arts to push back against those ideas. It's a difficult, and we make sense of those. We also find that it's a connection that I don't share. So what advice for anyone online, it seems you're calling to work with this room, about what was
I will struggle with advice, to be honest with you, because I believe that my life is a work in progress. I'm a mess and quite chaotic myself. And so, but I will say what works for me. That's the thing, and you feel free to take it, like, I don't even advice. Something come up, you're like, but what I would say though, there's like 3 questions that I think I always ask myself before engaging in something. And like broadly, these are not specifics. I obviously will merge the questions depending, but one of the first questions is often like, is this moving me? Am I feeling, what am I feeling? Locating what I'm feeling in this thing. Is it bringing me joy? Am I angry? Am I rageful? Am I resentful? Am I kind of locate myself in it? And then determine, does it have to be me? Does it have to be now? Those are the 2 other questions. Does it have to be me? Is a big question that I often ask. A lot of folks are like, oh, see, you do things around, but most of the work, like an expert, actually not. And most of the time, I don't believe I'm the right vehicle to do X, Y, Z, but it's about finding who's already doing that, who's already doing that, who have a thing that they've already been doing that I just need to uplift and share, who you'd be surprised what uplifting something that already that's late like dormant, but that does to a movement, an idea, a spark, a book, and then does it happen now? Is it urgent? Is it something that is a long term? Is it something that's going to take a lot of time, or does this not happen right now? Do I need to call a meeting tomorrow to talk about this? Do I need to write an article today about it? And then answering those 3 questions always, to be honest, has not failed me. Has led me determine at the moment how I need to, and it allows me to like sleep also, because if you're an overthinker and you think like, and I know we're on live stream, but my sister called Captain Sable, and you have that dream where you're like, I need to like always do like, I can do it. Answering the 3 questions helps me orient around how to navigate it. I generally I am ridiculously patient as a human being, and I play long and often always. it's kind of why, I mean, I say it's ancestral with my relationship with time is like, what is it? It will happen. It needs to happen. I know we're in a hyper-capitalist world. That doesn't necessarily coincide, but it's like, I think that the advice I would give, always, is that always for myself, they're just like, one can only do certain things in one day. And I think I say that even I'm often was trying to do the most. If you're the opposite and you're trying to activate more, this might not apply to you, but it still might at the same time. That when I find balance in my days is when I'm able to accomplish so much more, when I feel like I have this power. And for me, the power of balance is both expending energy and energy. It's excreting things, but also replenishing. It's being grateful and trying to change something, and at the same time, telling my friend how much I love them and pouring into them and being there for them when they're a child, 1.5. It's like I always need the balance with goal. Maybe because my moon's in Libra, I don't know, but I need to. Hey, balance. We need the goal, and I think I've seen just the sheer amount of beauty that comes out of that, and my capacity to engage in change making dramatically increases. I used to be my early 20s in the world of my entire 20s actually was in the world of like, I just used to be at a coalition meeting for like 11 million hours and I'm there all day and I'm going to go to the thing afterwards and the thing afterwards. And someone asks, have you eaten? And you're like, no, I thought it's like, I literally ate money. Sorry, it's so sorry. But the thing was, I'm working on it because there are moments where I was like, oh, we sat and talked about that community conflict for like 12 hours actually. Yeah, we did. Yeah, it took the whole day. Yeah, it did. You didn't go to work actually. Okay, and this shit then, yeah. Like I was just like, about the sacrifice, and I see sacrifices differently because I've been burnt out so many times. I've also been burnt so many times. I've also burned so many times. And so I don't think we show up our best when, and I'm talking about like the mid 2010s when even like the city days where we were up at 6 and we'd just be out on the street all day and people would do their job. We're like, it's fine, we'll figure it out. And we just like, it's been at 10 p.m. and going home and you're like, whoa, I literally, like, and I noticed that it's just reaching an end and your literal brain, you have nothing to offer. Like a we haven't been able to 100%. And I like radically found balance. Like it's kind of like even after this, I'm taking this in, I'm gonna go home, I'm allocating like 30 minutes for myself to like actually just watch YouTube videos and just I'll watch Drag Race recaps or something and just kind of like drain my brain. And I never valued that. And now more than ever, having limited capacity, I'm like, holy crap, I'm ready to go. The last thing I would say is that I think the difference, there's not much that actually separates people who engage in change making people who don't actually. We all see the problem. We also see the problems. It's funny when I talk to people that I would never consider a change maker, and then you talk to them and you're like, oh, wait, we get it. We all get it. We all see your problems. I think the singular difference is that perhaps some people wait till the perfect solution of how to fix it, and someone was just getting the mess and are like, people ask, what's the solution to this? And I just know it's not the problem. So I'm headed for it, and I just recommend just like getting in the mess, even if you don't even know what you're doing, how you're doing it, or what you're actually trying to, what you're trying to change, but like what the end goal. You might not know what utopia is, but you just know that like this or this was wrong. This thing is not it, or this process, my supervisor and what they're saying to me is not okay. This policy and these rules are not okay. This contract is not okay. You don't have to know it. You just have to be able to say, this is not okay. And you'd be surprised how many people will be like, you think so too? Me too. This is also not okay. And that's where like mediation comes. I've never done change anything on my own. I've always been part of the group. It's a group process, it's a group project, it's a collective project. And so you might feel, we live in a world that's like, if you don't have a solution to the problem, stay quiet. You do the opposite. Like, actually, speak when you see the problem for you, because that creates so much more space for somebody else to come in and say, I also thought it was weird when we got that X policy. Then you're talking about it. Then you're like, you feel like that too? Yeah, I don't feel like that. Okay, why don't you feel like that? And then you're talking, and you realize, oh, it's X, Y, Z. I don't think it's a coincidence that like structures like political structures like parliament are from race. I don't think it's a coincidence that structures like advocacy structures like unions, formal ones, they engage through conversation and debate. It's how you change things in our families all the time. And so I just recommend that. Just don't worry about the solution. Just like be the one that sparks and says, I'm gonna say it, controversial opinion, I don't like this thing. And it's like, in my experience, it's never as controversial as you think. There's always somebody else who's like, I agree. Saying I agree.
That really resonates with me, especially the rest, as a way to balance your nervous system. The question is about finding your voice, and I think you need to balance your nervous system to really find your voice. We talk a lot, but the voice you're speaking in, if you're not loud, may not actually be you. It's a version of you, but might not be the purpose of you. Our friend Malcolm last night was like, everyone has a purpose. And I think that's true. Sometimes it's a life journey that clarifies exactly what that is. But I think for me, you know what it is, and it's like whatever keeps coming back. The thing that you keep trying to like run away from. I feel that I've tried to run away from the purpose so many times because it stresses me out, puts me in situations where I don't feel safe. It makes me do really difficult personal work that I would rather not do. It encourages me to make sacrifices that I would rather not make. And so I've run away from it so many times, and it just comes back. And it comes back. And I think that's the voice thing. It's like, what just keeps coming back, no matter what you're doing like that, it's going to always come back to you one way or the other. I think that's your voice. I think that's your purpose. I think also like, balance your nervous system, and you've gotten some good sleep, feeling on the programs, the 20s where that hustle life. I'm trying very hard not to live that life now because I realize I'm much better at my job. Especially in the advocacy and activism space, people are so not okay, right? People are not okay. And your job is to try to find solutions towards collective opinions. That's not very well said, but and you can only do that well if you're love. Because you bring in this energy of other people. And at that space, if you ask yourself, who am I? What ancestors are speaking through, what other influences, even if it's something like love through, who am I to reflect the experiences that I've had through life, the places I've been, the people I've met. If you can sit down and write about that, who are you? And when it's scary, you might want to share it with anyone because we're in this world right now. People that cancel you and all that. So you might write things that you don't think people want to hear. Your true answer to that question might not feel like social media ready or YouTube ready. So I would say like write your real answer to that. And only share it with people who can hold that sacred truth with you. And not everybody needs to know. Like, I think that's really powerful. As a way to reclaim yourself, like, not everyone needs to know. And not everyone has permission to have access. So you know, right? And you find the people who can trust or think with you. And maybe that grows over time. Maybe that community grows. And maybe it stays really small. And that's okay, that's enough. Right? Like, even if we're just doing limited work in a small group of 100 people, that's enough. Personally. In addition to all of your enabling staff, this is
Thank you. Thank you. I think as we end, I really appreciate for a conversation like this because it can be one idea, but somewhere else. We also then a further opportunity. This is the idea that without fortifying ourselves, without finding space, self-care space, then the artivism, the activism, the work that we do in this particular space is not possible. And I definitely hear it in the advocacy space that I walk into. As we walk into their eyes go, oh God, I'm not supposed to do this, I don't know the answer. But it's so important to walk in knowing and know that you're purpose, and know that the person just needs a center. That shit because the shape is made in our future that we experience. So I really love that idea also about sacrificing. I think as change makers, as people working in the arts and we have sacrificed that. You don't want to run shit to have to come and say that. And it's just okay. I don't have to be everything. So I think also, as you mentioned, when you're working in arts activism, you want to be everything. But that, no, sometimes that is not really what we need to do. Sometimes you not need something to everybody. When I wrote up the consumer of the arts requires voice. So really, at the beginning, to what advocacy looks like, what change looks like, what creation. I think those are really pieces. And I love and I get into this idea of how do we continue to grow this. It's something that purpose comes up so much because as other words, so in a space of purpose, I think we also have spaces. And even as I can mention all the things. So thank you so much for the beautiful conversation.